How to stop thinking about your avoidant ex-pairs, even if you miss them. It sounds simple, doesn't it? But if you've ever been through it, you know this isn't just about memories, it's about mental survival. You wake up in the morning, and before you even check your phone, their face flashes in your mind. You tell yourself, I'm done, but every song, every place, every silence somehow pulls you back to them. You scroll through old pictures not to remember them, but to understand how it all shifted. Because deep down, a part of you still believes there's something left, that maybe this time they'll return as the version you first met. You know they've detached, you know the connection isn't what it used to be, but your mind doesn't obey logic when emotion is still raw. You keep looping through the same moments, the warmth they showed when they were present, the cold distance that followed, the confusion that never got resolved. And that loop, that unfinished cycle, becomes the hook that keeps you tied to an avoidant, long after they're gone. You've tried everything. No contact, distractions, self-improvement, even manifestation. But nothing seems to quiet that voice that whispers in the background. Why can't I stop thinking about someone who's not even thinking about me? Here's the truth. It's not obsession, and it's not weakness. It's your nervous system trying to find balance after emotional chaos. Avoidant relationships don't end neatly. They leave behind residue, emotional tension that your brain mistakes for unfinished business. Because what you got attached to wasn't just the person, it was the pattern, the emotional high when they came close, the anxiety when they pulled away, the chase that made you feel alive. That rhythm, the push and pull, created a chemical bond in your mind. So when it ends, your body doesn't understand the difference between missing the person and craving the calm after their chaos. It's withdrawal, not love. And until you recognize that, your thoughts will keep searching for closure in a place that was never safe to begin with. But this video isn't about forgetting your avoidant ex, because the truth is, you can't just delete emotional memory. It's about retraining your focus, about learning how to redirect your mind away from obsession and back toward clarity. We're not here to play tricks, fake indifference, or suppress emotion. We're here to understand it, and use that understanding to regain control. Because stopping the thoughts isn't about erasing them, it's about understanding why they keep replaying, and learning how to take your power back from them. So if you've been trapped in that mental loop, questioning why you can't move on, stay with me. Because in this video, we'll break down 5 powerful ways to stop thinking about your avoidant ex, even if a part of you still misses them. The first step is awareness. Understand the addiction. It's not love, it's withdrawal. You're not weak, you're not obsessive, you're chemically attached. When you've been in a relationship with an avoidant, what you experienced wasn't consistent love, it was intermittent reinforcement. Moments of closeness, warmth and attention, followed by cold silence and withdrawal. That unpredictable pattern wires your brain in a very specific way. You start to crave the next moment of closeness, the next time they'll soften, text back or look at you the way they once did. And here's what's wild, your brain starts to release dopamine, the same chemical triggered by gambling, risk or addiction. The uncertainty becomes intoxicating. So when the avoidant finally pulls away for good, your system doesn't just miss them, it craves the emotional rhythm they created, the push and pull, the high and low. That unpredictable cycle kept you emotionally alert, constantly guessing, hoping, waiting. You're not missing the person. You're missing the chemical storm that surrounded them. It's not love you're chasing anymore, it's withdrawal. And that's why detachment feels so hard. Because when you try to let go, your brain sends alarms. It tells you something's missing, even though what's missing is the very chaos that exhausted you. So the first real act of freedom is to stop personalizing this pain. It's not about your worth, it's not about their absence, it's about what your nervous system got used to feeling, intensity instead of safety. Start reframing your thoughts. Every time your mind replays the good moments, pause and write down what actually happened. Not the filtered version, the full picture, the messages they ignored, the nights they went cold, the confusion that made you question your own reality. That's the truth your brain conveniently forgets when the craving hits, because the mind doesn't crave peace, it craves what it remembers most vividly. And with an avoidant, what you remember most vividly are the highs, not the emotional distance that followed. That's why awareness isn't just mental, it's neurological. You have to teach your brain that calm is not boredom, and chaos is not connection. The next time that urge hits, that pull to check their profile, to replay the old texts, to wonder what they're doing, stop and ask, am I missing them, or am I missing the emotional rush? When you can answer that honestly, the craving begins to lose its power, because once you name the pattern, you start to see it for what it really is, a cycle you can break, not a bond you have to serve. Detachment doesn't start with forgetting them. It starts with understanding what your body has mistaken for love, and learning to call it what it truly is, withdrawal. Once you understand the addiction, the second step is break the mental loop, stop feeding the fantasy, because even after the avoidant has gone silent, you might still be keeping the story running in your mind. It's subtle, you don't even realize you're doing it. You replay their last words, overanalyze the texts, interpret their silence like it holds hidden meaning. You imagine conversations that never happened, what you should have said, what they might be thinking now. And without realizing it, you've turned the relationship into a mental movie that keeps looping inside your head. Here's the truth, that loop is your mind's way of staying connected when reality has already ended. It's not love, it's resistance to finality. You keep thinking about the avoidant because your brain is trying to finish something that never gave you closure. Avoidants rarely give clean endings. They fade, they vanish emotionally long before they physically leave. So your mind fills that silence with imagination, fantasy steps in to replace facts. You start idealizing the best parts, replaying the warmth, the laughter, the emotional highs, but memory without balance becomes manipulation of yourself. Because for every beautiful moment you replay, there's an equally painful one you conveniently mute. And that selective remembering keeps you emotionally trapped. To break that loop, you must stop feeding the fantasy. That means stop giving your mind material to romanticize. No checking their profile, no rereading old messages, no searching for hidden meanings in their last goodbye. When you do these things, you're feeding the very illusion you're trying to escape. Your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. It reacts the same way. Every time you indulge the thought, it releases the same chemical reward that says, we're still connected, but you're not. You're reliving a story that's over. Here's the reframe. Instead of asking, why can't I stop thinking about them? Ask yourself, what am I gaining by continuing to? Is it comfort, familiarity, avoiding emptiness? Most of the time, the answer is, it fills the silence. And that's okay to admit, because awareness breaks attachment faster than self-blame ever could. Now replace rumination with realism. When your mind replays a memory, don't shut it down, complete it with truth. Yes, that was a good moment, but it came after days of withdrawal. Yes, they smiled that night, but they ignored me the next morning. You're not being bitter, you're being accurate. And accuracy is what collapses fantasy. Your goal isn't to stop the thoughts instantly, it's to drain them of emotional fuel. Every time you respond to fantasy with truth, the loop weakens. Every time you refuse to feed the story, your focus shifts from them back to you, because the mind only obsesses over what it believes is unfinished. So when you start meeting every what if with what is, you break the illusion piece by piece, until one day, you stop chasing the ghost of connection, and start living in the peace of clarity. The third step is reclaim your focus. Redirect the energy back to you. At some point you have to ask yourself, how much more energy am I willing to give to someone who's no longer here? Because that's what constant thinking really is, energy leakage. Every replayed memory, every emotional debate in your head, every imagined conversation, it's all energy leaving you and going nowhere. You can't stop your mind from thinking, but you can choose what it feeds on. When an avoidant leaves, they often take more than your presence. They take your mental space. They live rent-free in your thoughts, shaping your mood, hijacking your focus. You might be at work with friends, or trying to rest, and suddenly your mind drifts back to them. That's the emotional gravity of attachment. It keeps pulling you toward the past. But here's what most people don't realize. You can't erase the thoughts, you can only redirect them. The same emotional energy that's looping around them can be repurposed to rebuild you. Because energy isn't lost, it's transferred. Start by identifying your triggers. What moments or emotions pull your mind back? Is it loneliness, boredom, nostalgia, guilt? Write them down. Awareness gives you a roadmap out of mental chaos. Then every time your mind drifts toward the avoidant, don't resist, rechannel. If you think about their silence, use that moment to reconnect with your own voice. If you miss their validation, pour that attention into something that expands you, your body, your craft, your peace. Because the more you fill your life with things that reflect your worth, the less room your mind has to chase someone who didn't. Think of focus as a lens. Right now it's pointed at them, but slowly, deliberately, you turn it back toward yourself, your goals, your stillness, your growth. And as you do, something powerful happens. The emotional fog starts to clear. Reclaiming your focus doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding energy into a memory that no longer feeds you. You start choosing clarity over craving. And that's how real detachment begins, not by forgetting the avoidant, but by finally remembering yourself. The fourth step is rebuild your self-image. Who are you without their mirror? When you've been deeply involved with an avoidant, something subtle but powerful happens. You start seeing yourself through their eyes. Their approval becomes proof that you're lovable. Their silence becomes proof that you're not enough. And without even realizing it, your sense of worth starts orbiting around their perception of you. That's why when the avoidant pulls away, it doesn't just hurt your heart, it shakes your identity. You're not only missing the connection, you're missing the reflection of who you were in that connection. And here's where detachment meets self-rediscovery. Avoidant dynamics often condition you to shrink, to speak carefully, to stay calm so they don't withdraw, to silence your needs just to keep the peace. Bit by bit you start living inside their comfort zone instead of your own truth. And after enough repetition, you forget who you were before them. So this step is about reclaiming your self-image, not the version shaped by their reactions, the version that existed before you started chasing emotional breadcrumbs. Start here, ask yourself, who was I before this relationship began consuming me? What lit you up? What made you feel powerful, grounded, creative, or alive? Most people can't answer right away because they've spent so long measuring themselves by someone else's moods. But that's okay. This step isn't instant, it's excavation. Rebuilding self-image begins with small acts of self-definition. Say no when you used to tolerate. Express yourself even when it feels uncomfortable. Spend time doing things that reflect your individuality, not the shared version of you that existed in the relationship. Every moment you choose authenticity over approval, you chip away at the false identity that the avoidance behavior built inside you. And over time, that's how you separate who you are from who they made you believe you had to be. Understand this: avoidance often connect through control of emotional distance. They pull back, and you lean forward. That movement trains your mind to associate effort with worth. If I just try harder, they'll come closer. But true worth doesn't need to chase validation, it simply is. So now, instead of asking, why didn't they choose me, ask, why did I stop choosing myself? Because when you start choosing yourself again, consistently, unapologetically, your self-image shifts from reaction to creation. That's when healing stops being about them. It becomes about reclaiming your reflection, the version of you that's calm, confident, and whole, without needing to be mirrored in anyone else's eyes. Rebuilding self-image isn't ego, it's realignment. Because once you remember who you are without their approval, you'll realize that detachment was never about losing them, it was always about finding you again. The fifth step is choose discipline over emotion, the mindset that breaks the spell. If you truly want to stop thinking about your avoidant ex, this is where the real work begins, because it's not about erasing memories, it's about mastering your mind when the emotions try to take over. Even after you've understood the psychology, even after you've analyzed the pattern and told yourself it's over, there's still that quiet pull, that emotional gravity that drags you back into old loops. You feel strong for a few days, and then suddenly you're checking their profile, rereading old messages, or replaying conversations in your head. That's not weakness, that's conditioning. Your brain was trained to associate emotional chaos with love, so now every time silence hits, your nervous system goes into withdrawal, not from them, but from the emotional roller coaster they represented. And that's where discipline becomes your superpower, because logic breaks the pattern emotions keep feeding. Discipline teaches your brain that not every urge deserves a reaction, that thoughts can pass without turning into actions. Think of emotions like waves, intense, overwhelming but temporary. If you stand still long enough, they always fade. But when you act on every emotional impulse, checking, texting, imagining, you strengthen the same mental circuit you're trying to dissolve. Every time you give in, you tell your mind, they still matter more than my peace. Discipline is the moment you flip that script. It's not about becoming cold, it's about creating structure for your emotions. It's saying I can feel this without following it. That's real control, that's emotional freedom. Start small. When the urge hits to check on them, don't fight it. Delay it. Wait 10 minutes. Breathe. Write what you're feeling instead of reacting to it. 9 out of 10 times the wave will pass, and you'll realize it never had real power. That's how you retrain your brain. One resisted impulse at a time. Your avoidant ex conditioned you to chase validation. Now you're conditioning yourself to choose peace. You're teaching your nervous system that stillness doesn't mean danger, it means stability. That craving doesn't need closure, it needs calm. Discipline also means setting boundaries with your environment. Remove reminders, mute or block if necessary. Stop scrolling through digital ghosts, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Because protecting your focus is an act of healing, not hostility. And yes, some days will be harder, you'll miss them, you'll feel that ache. But discipline means not letting that feeling dictate your behavior. You can miss them and still not reach out. You can remember them and still move forward. That's the turning point, when love no longer equals obsession. When your emotions no longer hijack your choices. When you think about them and feel nothing but calm, that's when the spell finally breaks. So remember this, emotions react, but discipline leads. And once discipline becomes your new rhythm, your avoidant ex stops being a mental loop and becomes just a chapter that taught you how powerful your self-control really is. One day you'll notice something strange, you'll go through your morning and their name won't echo in your head. The ache that once felt endless will start to fade into background noise, and that's when you'll realize you didn't stop thinking about them by force. You simply outgrew the version of yourself that needed them to feel complete. Because every time you chose to redirect your thoughts, every time you faced the urge to check their profile but didn't, you were quietly rewiring your mind for peace. You weren't trying to erase the past, you were teaching your brain that safety exists without their presence. That's the secret no one talks about. Healing doesn't come from fighting the thoughts, it comes from no longer feeding them meaning. You stop asking what if, and start asking what now. You begin noticing small moments again. A calm morning, a laugh that isn't tied to pain, a sense of freedom you didn't know you were craving. Your avoidant ex doesn't disappear from memory, but they lose the emotional power they once had. They become just another chapter, not the whole story. And that shift, that lightness, that peace, that's your brain and heart finally working together again. So don't rush it. Don't judge yourself for remembering. Just keep choosing yourself, again and again, until thinking about them feels like remembering a dream, something that once felt real, but no longer defines your reality. You didn't lose them, you found you.